Warm up for lesson 5-5. Pause, and here's the answer. Pause, and here's the answer. Pause, and here's the answer. The question is asking about the x values that go with these y's that are negative. So this red part are negative y values, and the green are the x's that go with those red values. Lesson 5-5, solving polynomial equations. Objective, factor polynomials, solve polynomial equations by factoring. Let's go ahead and review factoring. Difference of two squares when we were in quadratics. Remember that you split up the x squared, you split up the 9, put a plus in one and a minus in the other. And that's because we want the outer and inner term, to actually go to 0. And we just want the first and the last term. One more time again. Split up the x, split up the 16, put a plus in one and a minus in the other. In a perfect square trinomial, it looks something like this. Split up the x, split up the 16, 4 and 4, and they're going to have the same sign. They're both going to be minus, so that my outer and inner term make negative 8x. And since they're exactly the same, that's why it's called a perfect square. This is just an ordinary trinomial. I'm splitting up the x, and I'm thinking of two numbers that make 16. Let's think about 8 times 2. One of them has to be negative. We'll make the 2 negative. And when you add these two up, you can see you're going to get positive 6. So it's going to be positive 8 minus 2. All right, factoring polynomials. We're going to have a new type of factoring situation, and that's something where we can have a cube, and we either have the sum of two cubes or the difference of two cubes. Now here is the format in which you will factor. So let's go up first, make sure that you understand these are two cubes. So this is x cubed plus 3 cubed, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Now according to the format here, that's what we have. And so this is going to be x, and then we'll have a plus 3. So I'm just following this format right here. And then it says to take this and square it, minus, and then you're going to take these two and multiply it, 3x, plus, and then you're going to take this and you're going to square it. So that's going to be 9. So this is the factored form. If I were to multiply it all out, I would end up getting this. Let's do the difference of two cubes, and just make sure you understand it's a cube. This is 2 to the 3rd power. Okay, we're going to follow the same format, but we're going to follow the difference. So according to this, it's the x minus 2. So when you're doing a difference, you start off with a difference. And then we're going to have x squared. And according to this, we're going to have a plus, and we're going to take the 2 and the x, multiply it together. Plus, then we're going to take the 2 and we're going to square it. Now to keep the signs straight, here's a little mnemonic that'll help you. When you are doing a sum, this first sign is going to be the same as this one. This sign will be the opposite, and this sign is always going to be positive. Again, if this is a difference, this first binomial is going to be the same sign. Right here, we're going to have the opposite, and this will be positive. Okay, let's go ahead and see if we can do that. This is x cubed minus 5 cubed. Now this is a difference, so I'm going to start off the same sign. X squared, now this is going to be the opposite, so that will be plus 5x, and then plus 5 squared, which is 25. All right, remember this is x cubed minus 1 cubed. It's going to be the same, x minus 1, x squared, and this is going to be the opposite of this, so that's plus 1 times x, which is x, and then plus, we're going to have 1 squared, 1. Your turn. Pause and see if you can do this. And here's the answer. Okay, factoring by using the greatest common factor. Okay, So before we use any of our techniques, always look for GCF. And I can see there's an x in all of them. So I'm going to factor that out. X squared minus x minus 6. Now I just have a quadratic. So I'll just go ahead and factor my quadratic. And so that'll be a 3 and a 2. And I want more negatives than positives. Okay, here's another greatest common factor. It's actually x squared. So this will be x squared minus 9. And this is a difference of two squares. This is something from quadratics that we practiced. 3, 3, a plus in one, and a minus in the other. Your turn. Pause to see what you can do. And here are the answers. Let's factor in using a quadratic form. Well, here's quadratic, so let's go ahead and just factor it. And we're going to put an x here and an x here. Now, what makes 36 is 9 times 4. 9 times 4 is going to add up to 13. So this will be minus 9 minus 4. And that's all we can do. Now, this also looks like a quadratic form, except that instead of x squared, it's x to the 4th. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this, just like we have over here. We're going to make the x go in both of those places. That's what we're going to do here. And so I'm going to put an x squared here and an x squared here. And I'm going to still use my factors 9 and 4. And so this will be a minus 9 minus 4. So it's a similar factoring here. Now I'm going to check my work to see that I did okay. And so I'm going to distribute. So that's x to the 4th minus 4x squared. And then I'm going to distribute over here. And so that's going to be minus 9x squared plus 36. So this is x to the 4th minus 13x squared plus 36. So I got back to where I came from. So what we're doing is we're treating this in quadratic form. Let's look at that again. This is a quadratic form. Let's go and factor it the way we would have done in the quadratics chapter. And this is going to be 25 times 1. So it's minus 25 minus 1. Okay, and remember, you're going to use this idea of putting the x in both of those spots here. We're going to do, this is quadratic form as well. So I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to write it x squared, and it's the same problem. I'm going to use minus 25 minus 1. Okay, here we don't stop because this is a difference of two squares. And so difference of two squares, I would split up my x, 5 and a minus 5. This is also a difference of two squares. Split up my x, plus 1 minus 1. Okay, your turn. Go ahead and try it. And here are the answers. Okay, let's take a look at factoring by grouping. This is something where you might see 4 terms on it, factoring by grouping. And so we group the first 2 together, second 2 together, find the greatest common factor right here, and notice that this is the common term for both terms, and we pull it out, and then there's our factored form. Okay, your turn. Pause, and here's the answer. Okay, now there's a new word we're using here, and that is solve. Okay, before all I've been using is factoring. So these are similar problems that I just worked, but now we're going to solve, which means we're going to find what x is equal to. We have an equation now. So I'm going to factor difference of two squares, split up the x, and since this is a product that's equaling 0, I'm going to set each factor equal to 0. And so I'm going to get x is equal to negative 3 and positive 3. Okay. Split up my x. So this is a perfect square. This is going to be minus 4. And I'm going to set each one equal to 0. And I'm going to get the same answer twice. So x is equal to 4. This is what we call a double root, because it showed up twice. Okay, now let's go ahead and solve by factoring. Now these aren't quadratics, and we're going to use some of the techniques we just talked about. I'm going to try to use the GCF because I notice there's an x in all of them. So I'm going to go x, and x squared x minus 6 is equal to 0. And then I'm going to try to factor this quadratic. So it's x minus 3 plus 2. I'm going to set each factor equal to 0. And so I'm going to get 3 answers, 0, 3, and negative 2. Now I'm going to use the quadratic form here. I'm going to look at that as I go ahead and factor. So I'm going to write x squared, and I'm going to put minus 4 minus 1. And I can tell my outer and my inner are going to add up to negative 5x. Okay, this is a difference of 2 squares, so I'm going to continue factoring. And then I'm going to set each equal to 0. And I'm going to get 4 answers. I'm going to get negative 2, positive 2, negative 1, positive 1. Your turn. And here are the answers.